Okay, we'll start with the open session. Item 2.1, motion is required to adopt the open session minutes of December 6th. Requires a mover and a seconder.
So moved.
And seconder? Item 3, adopt the agenda of the January 10th, 2017 meeting. Requires a mover and a seconder.
I'll move it.
Seconder? Items 5.1, there are 2 letters from the Common Clerk's Office on consent agenda. 5.2, recommendation is to receive and file. A motion and a seconder required. A motion? And a seconder.
I'll move if no one else did, yeah.
In a second.
9.1. What happened to 5.2, there's 2 letters. Okay, the chief will speak to you the internal monthly report. Need a motion and a seconder.
Okay. The internal monthly report, Madam Chair, is that there was no complaints received during the month of December. There was no items of complimentary correspondence received during the month of December, and there were no grievances from the St. John Police Association during the month of December.
Yeah.
That would be my report.
Okay, thank you. Receive and file.
Move,
Do we have
receive,
a
file.
motion and a seconder? Okay.
Your seconder?
9.2, Marvin Corsan speaks to the 2 reports. 9.3 and 9.2.
The first report, Madam Chair, is the monthly report we provide the board on overtime and court time expense. And you'll see for the month of November, it actually looks quite well for us. We're just about $3,000 over budget. And year to date, we're just over $203,000 over budget. On the second page is court time. And for the month of November, we're $5,000 roughly over budget. And year to date, we're just under $80,000 over budget for those 2 expense items. If there's any questions, certainly we'll try to answer them.
Any questions?
Another question, more than for today, just to how moving forward we, I guess sort of drill in, and like how do we sort of pull this sort of, I've got an onion in my mind. How do we pull this apart and try to understand it, and how do we help as a commission, or as a force to try and drill into these numbers and. Pretty significant variances, $300,000, and there's lots of details and reasons why, and we'll probably need to understand it all tonight. But just for me, it's what do we do about it? Can we do anything? What do we do about it? And how to what degree does the data and what comes to mind? For example, I may have used this example earlier around the impact of mental health on police forces. Chief, you've made some comments in the past and others, and is there, and I don't even know if this is even an avenue, but if that is a major impact for the force, and then how do we link that back through to City Hall and conversations that we're having with the provincial government on many files, so that we register with the provincial government, for example, hey, we're struggling, other forces are struggling, you need more, frontline mental health support, at least to register it. I don't know what to do with this information as a commissioner. It's concerning, and then how do we, moving forward, how do we drill into it so that we can understand, here's the big buckets, here are the contributors, and then what do we do about it? So that would be my comments. It's not I'm not meant to be negative, other than to say how do I help as a commissioner. And if there's a linkage to my other job, if there's conversations that have to happen, if there's some things that we need to change, let's try to have those conversations. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The chief, he's working on something with the government on the mental health services, or how to. Like in province of Nova Scotia, they actually get reimbursed back to the police department.
Well, organizationally, I don't think we, with regard to dealing with mental health,
Not that issue, but the issue we had was with the officers sitting out at the hospital and us paying them X amount of hours because they got to stay there for a minimum, not much amount of hours. The province of Nova Scotia they get a rebate for it. The police department gets, they're the only province in Canada, I think, that does it.
well, we haven't marched down that road.
I thought we
Certainly
had
haven't contemplated sending Horizon Health a bill.
Oh, that'd be an idea, though, I mean, but
Yet.
that's what they're doing in the province of Nova Scotia. But anyway, I thought a year or so ago, my memory's not that good, that we had talked about doing something just when you first came here.
Well, I mean, I'll touch briefly on it, and perhaps Acting Inspector Fleming can enlarge on it, but I know that we've engaged with healthcare providers, whether they be Horizon Health or those that are offering mental health services in the community, to try and mitigate the impacts on policing that these calls for service bring with them. And it's just, it really is, I think it's nothing more than strategies and trying to put processes in place at the institutes and getting those resources to the street, and hopefully not, I think there's those instances where we're not necessarily having to take people into custody pursuant to the Mental Health Act because they don't fit the criteria, but we don't want to leave them either, and sometimes we're waiting for mental health crisis folks to get there to take those folks off our hands so that they get the real help that they need, not just the police officers standing there and waiting. But I think by and large, I think we're marching down that road, Jim, trying to establish more policies and initiatives to mitigate the impact on. I can tell you that last weekend, we looked at our calls for service on the summary. It was an astronomical number of calls involving people in mental health crisis that we had to deal with. I don't ever think I recall it seeing such a high percentage of the calls being related to that.
If I can, just when you were coming here last year, through the provincial level and the RCMP at the top level, assistant commissioner and the chief superintendent and the superintendent of federal police, and they've all changed. But there was a meeting with the premier as well with respect to mental health, because it's just not us, it's the whole New Brunswick policing community, right?
Probably the whole country.
We've had a paper done by our criminal analysis, Angela Cotton, as well as the RCMP have written a paper on it, and I have them actually substantive monies involved in mental health throughout New Brunswick, just not us. So with respect to your comment, Chair, I don't know about Nova Scotia. I knew that the one time Cape Breton Policing Services had sent Cape Breton a bill of $100,000. I don't know if it was ever paid because of I don't know if there's any legislation. I don't, what you're saying, maybe there is. I hope there is. But we've met with, as well, I know in Dave Parks and Jim, we've met with the doctor of the merge that took over because some of the issues were in their own policy about psychiatrists not coming out after 11 o'clock at night and those types of things. So that's what we're doing. It's a continuous effort, and I know we've met again, and Staff Sergeant Brooker just followed up with some information with respect to right information, and so it's a continuous process for us. We're trying to get better, as unfortunately society has changed, and it seems like we're 20% doing criminal work and 80% of it is societal.
Yeah.
So
But is it our policy that we stay with?
provincial legislation.
Okay, so it's a province.
Yeah. The
So
problem
if
is
they
it says 3 hours, but as a police agency that has safety in mind, we cannot leave somebody in the hospital in that facility for after 6 hours or 7 or whatever it is that has an issue, a crisis, or whatever the case may be. We have a duty to stay there.
Yes.
Do you have to transfer custody of the official?
They're actually not their hours until they take them off our hands.
Yes.
And notwithstanding the 3 hours that's in the legislation, I mean, these are our friends and neighbors that work up there. We're not leaving
No.
We're not leaving people up there.
Well, I think
in there.
even the risk to either party, the police department as an organization, to the person there.
But building on that idea, I mean, again, we're drilling down too far today, but I think there's some opportunity in my view just to better understand. But is there an opportunity to stay, you know, there's a couple things. Number one is you sort of look to the province to say, look, we've got a challenge here, this is an issue, this is the impact. We can stay for 3 hours, or is there another opportunity to have another option? Is there a private, can Horizon hire security that can stay with no?
They wouldn't be allowed to touch them, they wouldn't be allowed to, we've brought them there under, we have reasonable grounds to believe there's under the Mental Health Act, right? So that's provincial legislation that allows us to stay with them. And once the doctor assesses them and says they're good to go, or they need to go up to 4C, then we sometimes take them up, or they may feel that there's not even any orderlies hardly anymore in the hospitals. It's all female gender. My wife is a nurse, so I know that. So unfortunately, we have that legislation. We have the duty to care, so we could never, you know, I could tell you a story when I was there years ago, but that wouldn't do any good. We have to stay.
I think the opportunity though exists, you know, if it's through the avenue of the NB chiefs to lobby for, you know, additional funding for additional, if it was officer training. But it's, I think I spoke at the end of the year during one of the media, end of the year media debriefs, and I said, it's a resource issue. I mean, it's pure and simple a resource issue, and we keep talking about mental health and the police being the front, you know, the call or first resort for these mental health calls, but the operative word in this whole thing is health. It's a health care. We don't want this to be a police matter. We want this to be a health care matter. And if it's resourcing the healthcare system more fully or fulsomely, so that they can, you know, there can be more outreach at the street level to deal with people where they need the help. And not being institutionalized, maybe that's where the monies ought to go.
And we are doing that, Worship. Sergeant Harley Brown's meeting with all these groups. We're trying some new initiatives. Say with Glen McCluskey on the street, well, we know they have a mental health issue, but what else do they have? They don't have a place to live. They don't have a place. So all those initiatives, that fixes some of it, right?
I think
this morning. Yeah, it was a big meeting this morning.
I think what, just for me to wrap my comments up, I think we got a bunch of good data, so thank you for that. But drilling into it, trying to understand the root cause, and then we say, okay, here's a couple of things that we could bite into to go and try to work on. And to your point, Chief, you know, the NB Chiefs are having that discussion, and the Tri-City mayors are also supporting you and your fellow chiefs to have that discussion. Maybe we can make some traction. I don't know. I'd rather try something after a root cause analysis and failed, and then not saying things haven't been tried. I know lots have been. So
Not try at all.
Through the chair, if I could just, one of the things that, again, this morning, Sergeant Harley Brown brought a large group of mental health practitioners, medical folks, they met in here, but they're going after what they call a hub or wraparound policing, trying to take the resources instead of taking people to the hospital. It's nothing to take 8, 10, 12 hours or even run into overtime. Like the chief said, we can't
one person.
and we have to remember this debate about crime stats. Crime is going down, but calls stay constant. We just call it something different now. So we used to just, two of us could go many times and lock somebody up. It took 45 minutes. Now it takes 8 hours to actually give them the treatment that they have to have. So it's the same people. We just call it something completely different.
thank you.
Hey, I got just one more question, Madam Chair. Do we have a cost on this just for the officers being out, but not all the other things around healthcare, but tying up a police officer at that hospital for a year? Does that come under support services?
No, what happens, we did have initial costs on some of it, but a lot of even our calls for service maybe went to a barking dog, but then it ended up being some other crisis and we ended up at the hospital, or somebody's called in First and Balls Bridge. So we could give you a sort of a cost estimate in terms of looking through all the files, and it would be a rough estimate because we probably would miss some that wouldn't be captured, but you know, we take people out there for other things and all of a sudden it becomes a different issue, right? So we could attempt to give you a cost.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Inspector and I just took a training session today, and I forget, by 2030, the percentage of people that will be in mental health, it was like 31 in 3 people or something.
Mental health, using mental health services.
Yes, it's just,
Yeah, that's,
it's just, it just is progressing, and it's taxing. You know, I think this discussion started about overtime, and I'm not, I mean, there's so many factors that build in to the overtime. I suppose the calls for service that involve mental health and people having to stay over, but there's just a lot of factors, and I don't want us to get sidetracked on our overtime being simply driven by mental health calls for service, but it's certainly,
Yes.
it's certainly something that's consuming a lot of our time.
on that point, Madam Chair, as a new person on board, could we get a breakdown of, I see it broken down by court time, but just where the overtime hours are going?
Right.
Because when we're looking at what it looks like a 50% overage on our budget,
Right.
for court time it'll be 100% by the look of it. I think we have to have a very clear understanding of where that money's going.
That's a
So
good
that we
idea.
can plan for the future. I mean, if it's mental health, and I can understand that, then we should be able to talk about that and inform people that this is where the money's going.
Well, part of the formula is that we have a budget number that we have been trying to, for the last 3 years, our operating budget has not increased. Salaries have increased, our staffing numbers have remained essentially stagnant over that period of time, and the calls and the complexity of the calls for service is driving part of that. I mean, the majority of our overtime is in patrol services, and a large component of the overtime that goes into patrol services is simply staffing to minimum numbers. It continues to be. Now we increased our front line by 4 members this year. 4 members is not a great chunk, but it'll help mitigate things. What we're very hopeful is that, and this year in particular, and I've accepted responsibility for that, we undertook a great deal of training at the beginning of the year, whether it was public order, maintenance, tactical. We had to up the numbers in our tactical services unit. So we did a lot of overtime this year that perhaps we hadn't done in previous years. So that's going to impact the 2016 outcome. This year, in 2017, we're just starting our new series of block training starting next week. And we have done our very, very, very best to mitigate the need for overtime to staff our front lines during that block training. Last year, we undertook some different training which drove up the numbers. And we're hopeful that we're not going to have to do as much public order training this year, tactical training as we did last year, and that our block training will be delivered. And Jim Fleming was part and parcel of putting that package together so that we will have a more economically viable training package in 2017. Stay tuned, our fingers are crossed, but that's what we're hoping for.
Chief, I'm only asking to get an understanding of where we are, but the one thing I've always understood is shit happens. And, you know, we can plan on it being better next year, but it's to see if there's any consistency in why we run overtime, other than court time, which, having been there quite a bit myself, there's so much waste of time of the police going to the court. Can we make that an issue and deal with the Crown on how to minimize the time? But the public will not support an issue unless they know what it is. That's what I'm getting at. Is
Drill in.
We notoriously, for 15 years, our patrol services budget for court time was $98,000. Every year it was around 300, Marvin? We were
Yeah.
consistently over, we know that's the number, so we put it up to 128 last year instead of 98. Consistently know we're not gonna be anywhere near that, so you can make the budget 200,000, take the money, getting more money from somewhere else. We bought less cars, we did other things to make these budgets up, but I can tell you that a number of police officers, including myself, people before me, have tried different issues over the court to get something done, and they are understaffed as well, and et cetera, and unfortunately, it is what it is. I do agree with you, sometimes there's lots of wasted money with respect to police officers going, but we don't have that choice. They subpoena the officers there, and they have to go.
Yeah.
So, and they don't pay for it, we do,
No.
right?
Right.
I know that doesn't help you much, but that's, we know that we're gonna be over. So if you allot maybe another 40,000 next year, we might be half of it. But it's just the way the numbers are.
See a motion to receive.
Motion, receive and file, a motion and a seconder.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, thank you. And that ends our,
9.3.
no, 9.3. Sorry. You're on.
This next report was sort of, I guess ties into what Commissioner Thompson was saying about where does the overtime go? I think that's a question that is always asked, and we're always aware of that week in and week out. This next report is the utilization report, and again, what we try to do here is identify what is our sort of number, I guess, overtime hours that we can utilize throughout the year, and where did it go? For 2016, the annual budget was just over 8,000 hours. For the month of November, you'll see that we are about 144 hours over that allotment of 670. And year to date, we're just under 2,787 hours over budget. What's really important here is, and we talk about this every month, is where does that overtime go as far as being over? It goes back to patrol services. For the month of November, just picking up what the chief was saying, is we have minimum manning numbers throughout any given shift. And we are required to have a certain number of officers working. And when that number gets below that, we have to hire and backfill and get those numbers back up to where they should be. For the month of November, we had 43 shifts that we had to backfill. And this is only on the patrol side. Year to date, and we have these conversations all the time, is we're 484 shifts that was dedicated, or our overtime went to backfilling shifts. That's a concern for us, and certainly we're looking for opportunities where we can get the number of shifts that we have to backfill down going into 2017. But if you would ask where's our overtime being used, it's backfilling those shifts. Aside from that, if you take that it's 5,800 hours, and you go back to the first page, you'll see that patrol year to date was 77. So we can only use about 2,000 hours just to do all the other things that would happen during the course of, it could be someone staying over to a breathalyzer past their time, their shift's over. So there's only really about 2,000 hours that are used for all the other things. Those other hours are dedicated just to maintaining our numbers. So I think it's important to make that distinction between the two. 2,000 hours for the year over budget is not too bad considering all the extra things we have to do in patrol services. So I just want to highlight that to the board, that the majority of overtime for patrol services is to backfill and maintain our minimum numbers on shift.
The mover and seconder for 9.3.
Second.
And then, Madam Chair, can I just make two quick comments?
Sure.
So one is, I just wanted to thank the deputy before Christmas. I surprised him with a request for a tour, and I was able to get through the whole building, so thank you. I managed to do that without getting myself arrested, which is good. I wanted to run ahead of him, but he kept me in good nose. But all kidding aside, fantastic to tour through the building and see a number of officers and throughout the organization, and so I just want to thank you, Deputy, for that. The second thing is just a just sort of public thank you to the Sea Dogs organization. They have graciously given the city 1,000 tickets to honor our employees. And the way that we've decided to, including the police force, and the way that we decided to break those out is that we're going to, so for first come, first serve, in bundles of 4, so that mom and dad and a couple of kids can go to a hockey game. And the great news is it's this Sunday, and it's the reunion of Shabbat, Joseph, our new Gauthier, our new Rimouski players. So I suspect the rink's going to be sold out. So I'm hoping that our members from the force take advantage of that, and that we fill up our 1,000-seat section and plan on being at the game, and I hope that some of the folks here are as well. And I'm sure we can get the commission members if you send off a note quick. And I just wanted to thank publicly.
I'm sending off my note quick.
Yeah, quick, do it, yeah. But just wanted to thank the Sea Dogs organization for that, and make sure that the commission knew that Force was invited as part of that, and it's great.
Yeah, emails went out today.
Yeah.
Force to everybody. Also remember the Force
Can I
got.
just make a comment with respect to the worship coming around Christmas time? That was huge for our organization to see you in here and talk to officers, and I can't tell you all the comments that we got back that were very important. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime, yeah, thank you.
Just as a question, are there any commissioners here who have never gone through the police? Mike, have you?
No.
Send me an email, please.
Gary?
We'll be more than happy to bring you through.
I do that.
Brian? Jennifer?
Jordan here, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
used to have to
Bill?
do my
I haven't.
Yeah, because it's a great experience. Put your walking shoes on, because it's a lot of walking.
I can't do it. I get all confused.
They take you right over to the Justice Building.
Yeah, I was worried the deputy was going to lead me down the alleyway.
The tunnel.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Yeah, so
thank you,
that would be good. So send an email to the chief there, or to you, Glenn?
Either one.
Okay. Yeah, so that would,
Detention free.
Well, that's what I got downstairs, I did get a little nervous.
okay, so if there are no more questions, and,
Move again.
okay, we'll adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconder?
Well.
Thank you.
I'm just going to use the restroom.